Well, welcome to the daily space weather. We've got filaments, coronal holes, a small uptick in the radio flux, high likelihood of coronal mass ejections, and lots more to show you here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. And congratulations on realizing that the channel exists. Little crown prominence happening down there in the southern hemisphere. Large filament there in the northern hemisphere. And here's your SDO intensity gram. Looks like we got a new sunspot group here. That one should get a name today. We'll get to more in-depth coverage of that a little bit later. First, a colorized magnetogram. And let's move to volcanoes. So the world's largest volcano is in the news today. We'll get to that. First, Grimsvötn. Glacial flood continues there as an ice sheet subsides like 40 feet or 12 meters. So big glacial flood happening there in Iceland. Katla in southern Iceland, a small swarm of earthquakes happening there. And a possible glacial flood about to happen at Katla. Chikarachki at Paramushir Island continues to explode. Not that big of a volcanic ash plume. Well, it's 4.3 kilometers in height. Also, Sakurajima exploded. 9,000-foot ash plume from Sakurajima, 5,000-foot ash plume from Suwanosejima. Ibu, 7,000-foot ash plume. And the world's largest volcano, Mauna Loa, the Big Isle of Hawaii. The Big Island of Hawaii basically is Mauna Loa. It is the world's largest volcano. We covered a 5.0 beneath Kilauea, which is a subcaldera of the Mauna Loa volcano system. And, some significant earthquakes happening there over the southern flank, like that 4.6 on the 14th. And, of course, the 5.0 that we covered within 24 hours of its occurrence. So some elevation there, some elevation shifting, some inflation happening, not just in the currency, but also in the ground at the top of Mauna Loa. Popocatépetl exploding in central Mexico, flight level 200. Fuego exploding in Guatemala, flight level 150. Sangay exploding in Ecuador, flight level 200. Revenador exploding, flight level 150. That's a 15,000-foot ash plume, by the way, over Ecuador. 24,000-foot ash plume there over Peru from Sabancaya and Nevados de Chilean. Also strong eruptive activity there. A vigorous pumice and ash flow happening, as well as a 12,000-foot plume of volcanic ash. Flight level 120, don't pole vault the caldera. Seismic activity's been calm here over the past 24 hours. There's your 90-day bar graph of seismic activity. And the largest quake that occurred over the past 24 hours happened at Peru. It was only a 5.2 magnitude. Remember, folks, any earthquake can be a foreshock. Indonesia and Taiwan also having 5.0 magnitude earthquakes. But yeah, pretty seismically calm there. And let us know if we missed anything in the quake report. Chile also having a 5.0 magnitude earthquake. Getting back to space, here is the last 24 hours from SDO. Ionized helium, 304 angstroms. The radio flux has increased to 126 solar flux units. And there is the 1-year chart of that. If I had to do a forecast, I would say I'm going to expect to see some sunspots form in the northern hemisphere. We'll get to why here in a moment. It has to do with magnetic information, the polarity of the heliospheric current sheet. So here's your space weather enthusiast dashboard, and no geomagnetic storms forecasted. There is a brief period of geomagnetic unrest forecasted here for early in the day on the 20th. Maybe that's the CME that we saw the other day. Interesting. No indication of what that is. Let's see if the Enlil spiral shows anything. Not so much. Looks like ancient data there on the Enlil spiral. So that seems like an appropriate time for the CME impact that we showed from the 17th. That's when we would expect it to arrive early in the day on the 20th. So that looks like the CME impact that we showed earlier on the channel, a couple days ago on the channel. This is the last 4 hours of magnetohydrodynamic pressure, and things have been pretty steady here. We do have geomagnetically calm conditions. That's Earth's magnetic moment from space out to like 12 Earth diameters. Nothing too special happening there. Here's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground. This will show you the most likely places for pipeline, railway, power line induction, and the aurorae. Earth's magnetic moment from the ground here, scaled in nanotesla is the units. Nanotesla are the units. Is, are, what's the difference, folks? Who needs to conjugate verbs? Again, that's Earth's magnetic moment from the ground for the past 4 hours. KP index here, just over 1. 1.33 is the planetary K index at the moment. That's a measurement of global geomagnetism there. Each bar represents 3 hours for your new viewers out there. Real-time solar wind here, pretty steady over the past 24 hours. Current conditions are like 540 kilometers per second. Solar wind density just under 9 protons per cubic centimeter. It's a continued high-speed coronal hole wind stream. So there goes magnetometers, and we're seeing higher lows here and lower highs over the past 24 hours. And let's take a look at why I'm forecasting sunspots in the northern hemisphere. So basically what we see here is a southern South Pole polarity current sheet here shown in red. That is the solar plasma. It might be telling us a little bit about what will happen next. If you had only one piece of data by which to forecast solar activity, this top view ecliptic plane field plot would probably be your best bet. We are still also awaiting the northern solar polar field to fully leave the North Polar region. You can see that area right there still showing some significant North Polar magnetism there at the North Heliographic Pole. Don't be surprised to see some sunspots forming in the northern hemisphere. All right, so next is our line of sight plot. Sun's B field in blue, southern solar polar field in red, northern polar field in green. And here's our coronal hole plot. We see some very well-defined South Pole-oriented coronal holes here rotating in from the east. And here is a view of that from STO in 211 angstroms. Excellent example of a very well-defined coronal hole down there in the lower left. That particular species of ionized iron does not like to be in that area. And we're going to get to sunspots here in a moment. First, take a moment to visit our websites if you haven't done so, and welcome to the Neo Renaissance. Congratulations on realizing the channel exists, despite the pathetic censorship on big tech platforms. Big tech platforms like Apple, Twitter, Facebook, Google platforms, etc. Again, congratulations on realizing the channel exists. In 2018, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime he didn't commit. We promptly escaped a maximum security social media stockade to the internet underground, where we survive as producers of fortune. If you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash Team. And indeed, there are links on the homepage to the Smash Team. So check it out. Right there's a link also. Another link you'll find on the homepage is the link to SureMed. If you want to improve your health, well, the American Better Health Organization wants you to improve your health too. So do so with a SureMed membership, perhaps. You get all kinds of discounts in which the membership can pay for itself promptly by things like doctors by phone, counselors by phone, virtual veterinarians, discounts of 15 to 50% on dental, discounts on vision. The pharmacy could pay for itself very promptly as well. Massive pharmacy discounts. I've experienced them myself. Links below the video and on the homepage to SureMed. Drop me a line if you've got questions or concerns. Join up via my link. Also, if you want to support the channel via subscription membership, become a member of the Smash Team at smashomash.com/Smash Team. Thanks to our gold and silver level Smash Team members especially. They are the executive producers of the content, increasing the likelihood these videos will continue to exist, remain publicly visible, and free for all to view. smashomash.com/Smash Team. There's even a bronze level membership for those of you who are unable to open your cobweb-encrusted wallets. If you visit the Redbubble link below the video and on the homepage, the Smasho merch link will direct you to the Redbubble shop in order of best selling. I'm wearing the socks right now of the top seller, which contains words that shall not be mentioned on YouTube. The top seller there for obvious reasons, probably because of the promotion of things like disinformation, fraud, propaganda, nonsense, etc. Remember, folks, there's a fine line between fraud and misrepresentation. What's the line, you ask? Well, the line between fraud and misrepresentation is intent. If you intentionally misrepresent material facts, you've committed fraud. If you've done it by accident, it might be misinformation. If you've done it on purpose, it's disinformation, something you'll get zero of here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. And thanks for leaving a comment, TinMan1057. Today's featured product is a re-release. And it is this one right here, Smasher Price, My First Pandemic. So congratulations on surviving a global pandemic so far. You're doing a fine job, mankind. Although people are waking up, since their lives have been disrupted in an epic fashion over the past 3 years through all kinds of ineffective and indeed harmful attempts to, quote, control, end quote, certain types of biological, I won't say organisms, chemical machines. So check out some merch. Again, this re-release was one of our first merch items, featuring the infantile, pathetic attempt to, quote, control, end quote, certain things by masking the planet. How's that working out? Is that effective? Let us know in the comments what you think. Don't forget to press like and subscribe if you enjoy the content on YouTube. Thanks, YouTube viewers, for putting up with the pathetic censorship on the platform. If you're viewing on BitChute, make sure you go subscribe over on YouTube. You're missing a bunch of the content, like Smashomash.org presents The Sun, like our cosmology segments, like our Diamond Anvil Too Hard to Smash, driving, riding, and pro tips, terms defined, and lots more. Press like, press subscribe, press share, tell your friends and foes about the content. YouTube claims they're promoting it. We would like you, the viewer, to promote the content. And let's move to sunspots. So here we go. That group did indeed get named, Sunspot 3125. That's a good thing. And likelihood of solar flares not really all that high, although 3124 becomes quite likely to produce a large flare, perhaps as it approaches the limb. We'll look at the magnetic complexity of that later in the video. Let's take a look at sunspots from a couple wavelengths here. Here's 171 plus 93 angstroms. And here's 1700 plus 335 angstroms. These active regions over here do not appear to be sunspots. At least they were not sunspots when we did show prep. And here's sort of a zoom in of the equatorial area. I would also note that sunspot 3124 is at a very high latitude, an indication that we are still quite early in solar cycle 25. Next, moving to more energetic events here, like the proton flux, which we see flatlined. No spikes in that. X-ray flux here has been dropping over the past 24 hours. No major excitations there in the realm of high energy photons. That's X-rays. And remember, folks, don't get coronal mass ejections and solar flares confused. They are separate phenomenon. While often related, solar flares are photons. Coronal mass ejections are protons. So largest flare of the past 24 was this C3.28 rather. That happened at 1720 yesterday afternoon. So here's one of our bands that is good at viewing X-rays. It's good at viewing solar flares, rather. It's the 131 angstroms. Not even totally sure where that C-class intensification came from. I think it came from... I'm not sure. Somewhere in the west, I think. And here we've added 94 angstroms. That's a composite 94 plus 131. Let's continue on here. We don't want the video to be too long. And here's a star chart. If you're up before dawn, you might see a great crescent moon up there, as well as Mars high on the ecliptic. Mercury here rising ahead of the sun. That's the sky over the Lehigh Valley at the moment. And here is your solar system forecast. We've just moved into a crescent waning moon. We're about 1 week from a new moon. Here's your solar system forecast. As Earth starts to move away from the populated side of the solar system. And there's where things will be in a week. It looks like we'll have a new moon in 1 week. It'll make for a rather dark Halloween. Next, looking at some coronagraphs here. I don't think there were any major CMEs. Let me refresh that. Venus coming into view there on the Soho-Lascaux C2. Right there's Venus. That's yesterday's imagery. Some minor CME activity there. Doesn't look like anything is earthly directed. And here's today's frames. That's 23 more frames there. I think there may be a CME in the process of occurring while we make the video, though. So this huge prominence is kind of on the far side of the sun here. And I think a portion of that is on its way out. It is very unlikely to be earthly directed. Here's some more imagery from Stereo A and the Soho-Lascaux C3. So you can see this huge prominence up here. That is some plasma that is suspended by the magnetic fields of that most impressive sunspot of solar cycle 25, sunspot 3112 and 3116. I think some of that ejecta is finally making its way out. We may have some spectacular imagery tomorrow to show you with that. At the moment, things pretty chill as far as additional CMEs in the earthly vicinity. We ain't got none. What we do have is some fantastic 24-hour movies in composite. And we got another comet here. Check it out. There's another comet diving into the sun right there. Wasn't expecting that, but there it is. Suicide mission. And here is the further zoomed out view. That is the last 24 hours from SDO 304 angstroms plus SOHO LASCO C2 and C3. Continuing on to tell you why we think coronal mass ejections are really high likelihood. This is the ground-based solar observatory at Lermonth, Australia. And there are still quite a lot of filaments here on the earthly side of the solar disk, especially down here in the southern hemisphere. A couple large ones in the north remain also. That's what's going on in hydrogen alpha, 62.8 angstroms. Next, back to 304 angstroms. This is the GO16 SUVI. This is what we stream daily at twitch.tv/smashomash. Twitch.tv/smashomash. That's the last about 2.5 hours. Interesting prominence happening up here. A little bit of plasma rain. And here's the last 24 from SDO 171 angstroms. It's the house favorite. And it signals the transition to our bonus features segment. Bonus features starting out with satellite charging hazards. We ain't got none. Clear sailing for satellites at the moment. No surface or internal charging hazards. Electron flux here in a sort of a nominal range, more of an operating range there. This coronal hole high-speed stream taking its time to subside. Electron flux rising regardless. There is the relativistic electron forecast by NOAA. The green boxes of the forecast, the yellow diamonds are the observation. No arguments from me there. There's the 1-year graph to put it in context from Solon.info, and let's take a look at the F-ionosphere layer. It's one slice of the atmosphere. The upper layer of the ionosphere is at about 300 kilometers of altitude. It's the F layer. And here's the vibrational frequency in megahertz, courtesy Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. If you're not familiar with looking at it, don't worry. We're going to show you the anomalygram. And there it is, the anomaly in megahertz from the 30-day median. And here's the latest image. That's 10:15 universal time in megahertz. And there's the anomaly in megahertz. That's the anomaly from the 30-day median in megahertz, 10:15 universal time. Next, we'll show the total electron content forecast. Your GPS satellite is right on the inner portion of the outer Van Allen belt at about 12.5 thousand miles of altitude. And that area includes a plasmasphere, a Van Allen belt, another plasmasphere, and the ionosphere. And those free electrons create signal refraction. It's literally a count of the electrons from your GPS satellite to your handset. It's the total electron content forecast. The coupled thermosphere, ionosphere, plasmasphere electrodynamics. Nothing too jiggy going on here at the moment. Things are fairly organized as we see the electron flux rise. Still significant GPS errors there over America, actually. But things getting a little more organized there, and if we see the electron flux continue to rise, we can expect to see that continue to be concentrated around the equator at noontime. Next, the latest intensitygram and latest magnetogram. What do we got? Sunspot 3124 is pretty interesting. It's beta gamma class. And again, the likelihood of it flaring as it approaches the limb does go up a bit. What's up with this group? Looking pretty weak, but it is beta gamma class. Anyway, there's the rock back. If I had to guess, and I don't, I'd say there will be more sunspots forming in the northern hemisphere. So let's take a look at one more series of images from SDO before we transition to the meteorology segment. There's the 171 angstroms plus colorized magnetogram from yesterday plus today. As we just show the most detailed solar imagery and most comprehensive space weather you'll find in the known universe. So next, it's time to do meteorology. And we've got a powerful low-pressure system north of the Azores, southwest of Ireland. You can see that strong counterclockwise rotation there happening in the North Atlantic. Is it producing some high seas? I suspect it probably is. Let's take a look. I'll click ocean. I'll click significant wave height. Whoops, that's sea surface temperature anomaly. There you go, there's significant wave height. And what do we got? 23-foot waves up there. That's not too shabby. Let's see where the world's largest waves are. I suspect they're in the Southern Ocean. Check it out. Some 26-footers down there in the Southern Ocean. The Drake Passage, probably the most dangerous portion of ocean in the world. Some big waves down here too. Check it out. 26-footers in there as well, nearly 27-foot waves. Some big waves there in the North Pacific. Nearly 30-foot waves up there. As there is indeed a strong low south of Alaska. Here are the surface winds of the eastern world. Jet streams of the eastern world. Jet streams of the west. And we've got some very cold temperatures making their way to the eastern portion of the U.S. We'll get to it. See that cold air from Canada being injected deep into the southern U.S. Freeze warnings for portions of the Gulf Coast. Here is your surface wind scenario for the Americas. Surface winds of the central world. Jet streams of the central world. And check out your weather.gov map right after we look at the Himawari satellite. Give that a moment to initialize. It's well worth it. It's a typhoon near the Asian continent. Great imagery there of the sun rising. And doggone it, I lost it. Let me bring that back. Doggone it. Wait for it. And it looks like it's weakening a little bit there. Some spectacular imagery there from the Himawari 8. So check out your weather.gov map. That is a lot of freeze warnings. All those purple areas there, those are freeze warnings, making it all the way down to the Gulf Coast. The entire state of Mississippi and Alabama both expected to freeze. And it's only October 18th. Now that is typically an indication of a mild winter when you get these cold snaps so early, but hey, the weather can be pretty chaotic, so don't count your chickens before they freeze. So just be aware of that, folks. Bring your plants indoors if they are susceptible to being frozen. Or cover them up, take measures. That is a lot of cold air making its way down very far south. So here's the GFS forecast for temperature anomaly in degrees Celsius, and you can see that we're going to see temperatures there like up to 20 degrees Celsius below normal in some portions like Missouri, and also hot temperatures in the Pacific Northwest. So we're getting some wild swings of hot to cold in some areas as well. That's your GFS temperature anomaly forecast for the next 72 hours. Here's the raw temperature data for the next 72 hours. And temperatures into the teens in places like North Dakota and Minnesota. Minnesota is going to freeze solid. That's your 72-hour temperature forecast based on the GFS model. That is temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. DAG. And here's your pressure and precipitation forecast. We've already got nearly 8 inches of snow in some portions of the U.S. We'll get to it. Check it out, 7.6 inches of snow right now. In parts of the Upper Peninsula. Let's advance this 3 days. So some melting expected to happen by then. Looks like the maximum is going to be, according to the European forecast, about 8.5 inches there. So a little bit of a downgrade, but nonetheless, significant snow there. That is the European forecast. Next, quite a bit of lightning here over the past about 10 hours. Mainly off the east coast of the U.S., also in Mexico and Central America. And let's check our real-time lightning map. Do we have terrestrial strikes? Not in the U.S. Not in the allegedly United States of America. ALSA, the allegedly United States of America. Former nation, now banana republic. Are you enjoying the corporatism, fraud, and nonsense and propaganda? Are you enjoying that? Yeah, how about a little corporatism? By the way, the U.S. is not a democracy. It is a republic. No matter how many times people idiotically say the word democracy, 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 it's still a republic. No matter how much you argue it. If you need one word to describe the government, it is a republic, not a democracy. Anyway, that's your real-time lightning map from lightningmaps.org. Here is your U.S. Doppler radar map. And we will focus on the lower 48. Powerful low here, continuing to hang out over Lake Huron. You can see that rotational action there in the Doppler radar. It'll be even more obvious in the 3.9 nanometer radiation map here showing clouds and fog. Just hanging out there in between Lake Ontario and Lake Huron. And that is helping to funnel really cold air really far south. That's your water vapor map. Here's your recap. U.S. Doppler radar. Shortwave radiation showing clouds and fog. It's too dark for the visible satellite, and the water vapor, which should clarify things when your radar is not telling you the full story. Check out the water vapor map. It will hook you up. We're glad that we were able to hook you up. Thanks for leaving a comment, Mike. And it is time to close things out. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off from the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. And may that solar wind be at your back. Opinions expressed in this video, not necessarily the opinions of Smash News Network, least busted name in news.